Actually, Larry, can you tell everyone about the silent issue from G.I. Joe? Like the background, because I know the answer, so I think it's a really good story. But how that came to be, how you ended up drawing that issue, how you ended up writing it.
Well, it was Denny O'Neil, the editor, used to his desk was like stacks and piles of stuff, you know, had pages and scripts and, you know, books and comics, and like stuff would get lost in it. You know? I think he lost an entire issue or something, or, you know, it was misplaced, and we had to make up an entire issue in 3 weeks. And usually it's like, you know, you got 2 to 3 months, right? And I said, 3 weeks? Starting from nothing, right? So I told him, look, if I write it and pencil it, at least do the breakdowns at the same time, you know, that saves 2 weeks. And if I construct the story in such a way that we don't need lettering, we save another whole week because it doesn't have to get sent out to the letterer, you know? So that's what I did. I wrote and drew the 22-page story in 3 days. Started on a Friday, handed it in on a Monday.
This is like one of the most iconic comics of all time. Right?
What?
How many hours? 20 hours? 20
No,
hours?
I went to sleep. I could do about 7 pages of breakdowns a day, 7 to 8 pages, you know. I don't tell the comic book companies that, you know. Yeah, never tell them how fast you are. We had, and I was able, I did fairly tight breakdowns. You know, comics are like, the pay schedule is like there's full pencils, that's the highest rate, and then breakdowns, and then layouts, and then shakedowns, or something like that, you know. And they said, well, who can ink this? And I said, well, Steve Leialoha, you know, he's the tallest Hawaiian I've ever met. And he's in San Francisco. And I said, well, we got a FedEx at San Francisco? And I said, yeah, but, you know, he can do it. He can turn it around. And that's how we did it. And we had to color it as the pages came in, so.
So silent issue, just so you guys know, it's basically, you know, comics have word balloons and thought balloons, all that stuff. The silent issue was really iconic because there were no words at all. And it was just about Snake Eyes, like breaking into Cobra and doing whatever he had to do. And it became like one of the most iconic comics of all time.
Don't you also find out in that issue that Snake Eyes and Storm Shadow are related in some way? Isn't that the
Well, yeah, but see,
with the tattoos?
We do have the source. So.
the thing is, like, you know, I write. I don't call myself a writer because I don't really write. You know, I do the whole story in my head as a series of pictures, and then when I sit down at the word processor, I'm just describing the pictures. So I just forgot what you said.
Storm Shadow and Snake Eyes.
Oh yeah. Okay. So here, that's the thing is that, like, I write I write and draw page by page. I do not know what's on page 3 until I get to page 2. You know, that way I can't telegraph anything. You know, I've read so many books and comics and seen so many things where, you know, after 5 minutes or after the first 3 pages, you go, oh, I know how this ends. You know, you can figure it out. And you know, this is why I like Cormac McCarthy. You know, you read Cormac McCarthy, and like at the end of every chapter, you go, "What the hell?" You know, it's like, it's, you know, totally surprising, and that's what I like to do. You know, so I got to the middle of the story, and I had both characters in a fight, and their sleeves get torn, and their forearms are exposed, and I said, well, what can I do with that? And I thought, well, wouldn't it be great if they both had the same tattoo? You know? So I had used a I Ching hexagram in Iron Fist on the breastplate of Lei Kung the Thunderer. What I liked about I Ching hexagrams is that they're really graphic, and so I knew that if I had to choose one for these characters, I had to do one that I could remember, you know. So I chose one that was alternating, you know, broken and solid lines, with the broken line on top, which is hexagram 63 in the I Ching, which is called before completion. Okay, hexagram 64 is after completion. You know, hexagram 64 is the same hexagram flipped over. In I Ching, the placement of the lines is very important. You know, everyone knows what the I Ching is.
Sure.
Right. Okay.
64 hexagrams. The trigrams.
Right. So I put these hexagrams on the characters' arms, and I had no idea why it was there and what they represented or whatever. And 3 issues later, I had to come up with the entire backstory. You know, so you know, people go, you know, people always complain about you know, fixing stuff in reverse, you know, in comics, and retconning. And I tell them, look, the entire G.I. Joe run is completely retcon. You know, it's just, because I make it up as I go along. I've never read a single thing that I've ever done after I handed it in any form. So, you know, and it's really difficult to remember 268 issues of continuity. So sometimes I'll write a story and like, oh, people will go, well, that character died in issue 62, you know? And I say, well, no, he didn't. You know, it was all a ruse. It was to fool the Russians. You know? But that's the way I've always done it, and that's the reason why, for the 155 issues of my entire Marvel G.I. Joe run, there's not a single coming attraction, because nobody knew what the next issue was going to be, including me.